the name Davi Nikent came from a conversation with a Ute elder. The Ute were the first people here in the valley, and we felt that they needed to be honored, they needed to be recognized. So we asked Clifford Duncan, who was a friend, for a name that meant reconnection to spirit. Because my understanding, the people I was working with, that a lot of the malaise and dis-ease that we in the Western culture experience is because we've lost that connection. We've lost that place within ourselves and also the connection to the larger whole. And so Clifford gave us the sounds, Davi Nikent. We had to spell it because Ute language is oral, it's not written. And literal translation is always light.
So that was Rita Marsh, and she is this week's guest on the Alter Your Health podcast, your source of information and inspiration to promote the holistic transformation of your health and the health of our planet. And for those of you who are new to the show, my name is Dr. Benjamin Alter. I'm the host here. I'm also a naturopathic physician practicing holistic lifestyle medicine worldwide using plant-based nutrition, whole food plant-based nutrition, and also mindset coaching, empowerment with my wife, my partner, Dr. Susanna Alter. And you can find out more and get yourself scheduled for a complimentary 15-minute exploratory call at www.alter.health. So this week on the show, we've got Rita. Rita is a truly inspirational, bright being, and I met Rita soon after moving to Carbondale with Susanna. We attended an event that her organization was putting on. Her organization is Davi Nikent. We'll get into that in a second, but we attended this event and really had this soul-to-soul connection with Rita right off the bat. And I have been just so grateful for Rita's presence and the presence of the organization Davi Nikent for welcoming us and supporting us in this amazing community of Carbondale. And Davi Nikent, now let's get into that for a second. And we talk, of course, more about this in the conversation, but Davi Nikent is a nonprofit organization that Rita created, and it literally means always light in the Ute indigenous language. And always light is what Davi Nikent is really, its mission and vision is to support human flourishing. Davi Nikent is the Center for Human Flourishing. And Davi Nikent also operates around this integral health model, which we talk about in this conversation. And yeah, there's just so much good stuff flowing in this conversation. You're definitely going to want to listen all the way to the end to where Rita shares some really powerful pearls of wisdom to support you in connecting with your innate health and your wisdom. And other things that we talk about in this conversation are Rita's career as a registered nurse in the emergency department, and then as a family nurse practitioner. We talk about all of the experiences that she has soaked up over the years like a sponge, and she has not stopped soaking up stuff. And that's why she says that's why she puts on these parties via Davi Nikent, where she gets to learn and connect with more wisdom and more teachings all the time. We also talk about Rita's shift, her transition to a plant-based whole food lifestyle. We talk about how easy and effortless that was, which is, very inspirational to me because I hear all the time about people's struggles, at least initially, but it was just like a switch and super easy. And she has been able to maintain her optimal weight and also radiant health with the support of that diet and lifestyle. But also there's more to her well-being. We talk about some of those pearls, some of those important things that are beyond the physical that we need to take into account when it comes to our health and well-being, of course, as well. So before we dive into this one with Rita, I just want to remind new and old listeners alike, if you haven't yet taken the few moments out of your day to, first of all, hit the subscribe button wherever you're tuning in from, and then leave a rating, leave a comment, write a review. I would really, truly appreciate that feedback. helps me learn and grow all along the way. And feel free to share this one with someone who you know and love and might benefit from a little shot of inspiration in their life. So why don't we all put our feet on the ground if you're not grounded yet, and take a breath and let it go, and enjoy this beautiful conversation with my dear friend, Rita Marsh. Rita, welcome to the Alter Your Health podcast.
Thank you. It's nice of you to invite me.
Yeah, well, I have had this podcast going for about a little over a year and a half now. In the last couple months, I had the idea of creating this kind of locals series where I've been connecting with healers and practitioners and just cool people in the area. And when I decided to do that, I was like, well, Rita is kind of the coordinator of all these awesome people in our community, and I ought to get her on as well. So thank you for being here.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Yes.
So as I was just telling you, I'm not exactly sure what I want to talk with you about, but I know that I feel that you're full of a lot of information, wisdom, experience to share from your professional life as a nurse, and then however many years that you've been really devoted to Davi Nikent, the nonprofit organization in bringing together and community education and health education and teaching and workshops and inspiration. So between all of the things that you've been doing in your life, I'm sure that we can get at least an hour conversation about some good stuff.
An hour. Okay.
If you're up for it. We'll see how long we last.
Right.
But maybe just starting, earlier in your life as a nurse, what brought you into health professionally and in your life?
I think I was influenced early in my life by a couple of women who were friends of my family and who were nurses. And I just felt that they were really contributing to the community and to society through the work that they were doing. I grew up in Ontario, Canada, and in a rural area in the Lake Country. And so just with their influence, I decided that was going to be my career track. A little sidetracked because I really thought at first I wanted to be a physician. But my family said, oh, I don't think we could manage that. So I chose nursing.
What was I'm just curious, what was the kind of pushback from the family about being a physician?
The expense of the training.
Got it.
Yes,
Just education.
The
expense.
Educational expenses.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Great. So as a nurse, what were some of, I have kind of envision you as being maybe not the quote unquote typical like nurse. You've now at least you've got this very holistic understanding and perspective on health and well-being. Was that with you all along as a nurse?
Innately, perhaps it was there, but it was really through many, many life's experiences that I was thrown out of the nursing career into family nurse practitioner and wanted to really help empower people in creating healthier lives for themselves and for their children. Because as an emergency nurse, I was seeing so many people who were making poor decisions or getting themselves into difficult situations because of lifestyle or because of just maybe some other influences that were not allowing them to focus on the most important thing, that's personal health and well-being. And I was giving and giving and giving, and then it took me time to go back and say, well, unless you take care of yourself, you're not going to be able to help other people. So that began a journey of finding for myself what were the healing modalities and studying and information I needed to bring in and to practice for myself in order to become more whole and healthy.
Excellent. Were there any health experiences that you had yourself, and any health challenges rather, that kind of woke you up to heal thyself, or was it just more of this? Um, I don't know. Yeah, was there anything?
Well, I did have a situation to have surgery, a hysterectomy, because I have fibroids, and I just reading about that and what causes fibroids and the different ways to manage it after the fact. I thought, if I'd had this information, I might have done things differently. And I was starting to learn that how I thought, things I said to myself about myself, really affected what showed up in the physical
Hmm.
being that's me.
Yeah, is there anything that kind of pops in your head as an experience of that, or an example of that?
Uh, Not right now.
Hmm.
I did have the opportunity to work with a gentleman. His name is Paige Bailey, and he had a very interesting course that he was teaching people how to move out of chronic pain or chronic health conditions through stimulating their intellectual being and guiding them with information that they could see that information creates change in the body. And so he was using Dr. Larry Dossey's book, Meaning in Medicine, as the textbook in this course. And I became absolutely fascinated by, wow, this is a real thing that's happening.
Mhm.
Thoughts, emotions, nutrition, anything you take in to the body affects the body at the cellular level.
Yeah, I think a lot of us are understanding nutrition very easily, but you're so right in how thoughts are food as well. And if
Yes.
we have to choose nourishing foods in thought form as well. What I'm curious, like what time frame, what year was this?
I
In
lose, I lose track of time frame. I have no idea. Maybe back in the 90s
Okay.
that this was going
Shoot a
on.
decade, yeah.
Yes.
Pick a decade.
Yes.
Back in the 90s.
Mhm.
Yeah, Larry Dossey, by the way, I love Larry Dossey. He was on this podcast as well last year. I had a chance to visit him in New Mexico, and he's such an inspiration for sure, his life's work.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah,
He and his wife, Barbara Dossey, when I was doing intensive care nursing,
right.
her
Yeah.
textbook was the golden Bible to follow because it was looking at the whole person,
Mm.
mind, body, and spirit, not just the physical ailments that the person was dealing with.
That's a good point. So you had her textbook when you were studying to be a nurse practitioner then, or
No,
no, this was
it
like,
was back earlier
yeah,
when I was moving through different nursing positions at
uh-huh,
the Aspen Hospital.
got it. Yeah, which, maybe we'll cover this while you just brought it up. Like what brought you to this valley, to this area in Colorado?
I came to ski.
The mountains, like,
The mountains,
yeah.
yes. I asked a good family friend, where's the best place in North America to go skiing? And he said, Aspen, Colorado.
And
So
you came for a vacation and
I
then
came
you,
for a
yeah.
vacation, and then circumstances brought me back in the fall of 1965.
Wow. And then how long have you been in Carbondale? Or did
Um,
you move to Carbondale then?
I met my husband in 1969, 1970 in Aspen, and uh, we got married and had two children. We have two girls, and we moved to Carbondale in 77.
Awesome. Yeah, it's a pretty magical place. Yeah, so back to your nursing journey. Uh, you became a nurse practitioner to kind of get more into lifestyle, education, prevention, holistic medicine from the emergency room. You were seeing all the late stage, end of road, acute circumstances from these chronic conditions. Um, and and then, like, tell me about your career as a nurse practitioner. What were kind of most of your tools and skills, and what was your maybe your specialty, or what did you enjoy working with the most?
I worked with the family, Roaring Fork Family Physicians for a couple of years, and working with young families was really my. I love doing that.
Like new babies
New
and yeah.
babies and up to toddler age.
Mm-hmm.
But then my family and I had an opportunity to go to Greece for a year, so I took a leave and we had that adventure. Lived on the island of Crete for a year.
Wow. Yeah. And this, you were working there, or this
No,
was kind of a
no,
sabbatical?
this was kind of a sabbatical.
You could call it that. That's the
Yes.
official term.
Yes. And then during that time, the practice decided they were no longer going to have a nurse practitioner. So I came back and did work at Aspen Valley Hospital in the outpatient and with cancer patients in the chemo area. And then I was at Colorado Rocky Mountain School for 5 years as the health person on campus.
Like the nurse?
Like the nurse.
Like
the
that
nurse,
person?
The mom for
Nurse mom.
nurse mom. And
Nice.
that was interesting, taking care of these, or trying to take care of these young people who were in boarding school and challenged with being away from families and all sorts of different things going on in their lives.
Right across the road there.
Exactly. Yes.
It's a small town here.
Yeah.
So you've had many positions as a nurse, and then you kind of, we'll call it like very much quote unquote retired from nursing. How long ago was that? Or was it kind of a gradual?
Just a gradual phasing out. And
Yeah.
I guess when I met Paige Bailey and started to help do programs here in the Valley and also in Grand Junction and some in Denver, moved into that area. And then I got together with a couple of other women and we started creating our own mind-body program called Creating Health. And we wrote curriculum, and we have this piece of work that, although we're not together, it was quite a substantial piece of work, and a lot of people in the Valley went through that program, and it really helped them change their lives.
Wow, that's very cool. And so this was pre-Davi Nikent?
Pre-Davi Nikent, yes.
All right. So at the later stages of your nursing career, as you're phasing out of that and kind of still had your hands full very much.
Yes, and I really was hooked up with the work of Candace Pert, who...
I don't know that name either. You're always name dropping people that I feel like I really should know, but I'll have to look them up. Yeah.
She was one of the first physicians that really called out psychoneuroimmunology as a specialty. Yes.
Then I do know that. Yeah. Yes, I've heard that name in association with that big long word, psychoneuroimmunology.
Yeah. And so I was intrigued because I was also doing some energy work and learned how to do healing touch and some other energy modalities. And so I could sense energies, and I knew there's something there, but I was also very scientifically based, wanting to know, okay, what's the science behind what's happening with thoughts in the energy field and things that happened to you in this field that's around you, how it affects the physical body. And so it was a whole journey around putting those pieces together.
Very cool. It's interesting that you bring up energy work. I feel like most people I talk with who, are energy workers, they kind of have this insight early on in their life of this sensitivity to energy. And I'm sure you did as well, but you didn't really maybe officially act on that till like later in your career. Were you always kind of energetically sensitive as well?
I think so. Yeah. Growing up in nature, we were on a lake, and so nature was our play world. And so I was very much in touch with that. And my dad was an interesting person. He would often bring home injured animals, and he wasn't a vet or anything, but he kind
Just
of
kind of
intuitively
foster these
know what to
animals.
do,
Yeah.
and so we could. I had some experiences with that, and I realized too through my nursing career the way I spoke to people, the way I touched people had an effect on them, and could bring them into a place of presence where they could access that healing capacity, especially in emergency situations.
Yeah, that's really powerful and a really maybe a good reminder for everybody, like how important it is, or not, not to kind of stress about it, but just to have some awareness of your impact in the most mundane moments, and the non-mundane moments, like in the emergency department
Yes.
and so on.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Cool. Well, then that kind of we've kind of made it to Davi Nikent.
Almost.
Well, is there any other gaps that significant life happenings before the creation, the birth of Davi Nikent?
Well, I had the fortune of working at an organization in Aspen that started out as the Aspen Center for New Medicine. And that came about because of a woman, Glenda Greenwald, who had met her, she was familiar with the work of Herbert Benson and Joan Borsenko, who were at Harvard, who really started the mind body program at Harvard. And then I'm not going to recall right now the next physician she met, but he wrote the book about new medicine. And so she formed a board and they founded the Aspen Center for New Medicine. And they were bringing in speakers like Larry Dossey and a number of physicians and others in the integrative medicine field. And so I was so fortunate to act, be around those people and really saying, oh, this is the path I would like to follow. And during that time, I met Dr. Elliot Dasher, whose book, Integral Health, The Path to Human Flourishing, is really the founding philosophy, became the founding philosophy behind Davi Nikent.
Mm-hmm.
So being in town here, there was a business development committee at one time in Carbondale. I think this was back in 2003, 2004. Oh, it's been long ago. And they were thinking of bringing in something medical to bring more people to the valley, to draw to Carbondale. And I just happened to say it should be an integrative clinic. It should be an integrative center. And the woman said, okay, go for it. So I gathered up people that I knew who I knew were interested in that possibility. And we began meeting and formed a board and created this vision for a center for integrative medicine, integrative healing, which later became the Center for Human Flourishing because of the influence of Dr. Dasher's work.
Got it. So that is now Davi Nikent.
Yes, and the name Davi Nikent came from a conversation with a Ute elder. The Ute were the first people here in the valley, and we felt that they needed to be honored, they needed to be recognized. So we asked Clifford Duncan, who was a friend, for a name that meant reconnection to spirit. Because my understanding, the people I was working with, that a lot of the malaise and dis-ease that we in the Western culture experience is because we've lost that connection. We've lost that place within ourselves and also the connection to the larger whole. Mm-hmm. And so Clifford gave us the sounds, Davi Nikent. We had to spell it because Ute language is oral, it's not written. And literal translation is always light.
Yeah, I love it. And I love the intention of the formation of the organization, connecting people with their spiritual essence, or reawakening that connection. And that seems to really live on through everything that Davi Nikent puts on, as well as its integral place in the community itself. Like For example, when Susanna and I moved here, within a week of being here, we, of course, crossed paths with you and Davi Nikent and felt like, wow, this is our connection to spirit through the community. And it has been that. So
Well,
I guess
thank you.
thank
Yes,
you. Yeah.
that's been the intention,
Mhm.
is to, we've always held a vision that we would have a physical center where people would come on retreat and really move into an integral health experience that they could take home and apply to their lives at home. That hasn't manifested as yet. 5 years ago, I think it is, we were fortunate to find a beautiful space at Third Street Center that gives us the access to the conference rooms.
Mhm.
And we have a virtual campus there, and we're able to access all the wonderful practitioners here in the Carbondale community and beyond, and invite them to come and present programs.
Mhm. Yeah, it's great, and I also hold that vision for some center. I think it's just a matter of the optimal divine timing, and that'll be great when it manifests. And thank you for putting in the physical world reality legwork to help make that happen. Um, and I'm curious about like being you created that. Like what was the spark of I mean, you kind of spoke to the spark of inspiration, but then kind of the action steps that like creating a nonprofit organization is no small feat, and doing so fresh out of kind of a career as a nurse, it's there must have been a lot of passion and enthusiasm to do it. Otherwise, it wouldn't have gotten done. So I'm curious if you could speak to that spark of vision and inspiration and passion inside of you.
Well, that was there, and we were able to bring on to the board other people who held that same vision and people who had the skill sets to help us put the nonprofit into place and to continue to grow the vision. And people have moved on and off the board over time, and I'm the remaining
You're
founding
there,
member,
holding it down,
holding it, holding that
holding it up,
container,
holding it up.
holding the
Maybe not
container,
holding it down, holding
yes,
it up.
holding it up. And last year we were given a substantial gift by a wonderful friend and supporter, so we were able to uh, hire a part-time executive director. Artist Hoffman has moved into that position, and I'm able to step back and be continue to be a visionary and connector with all the resources I've gathered over the years, but not be the everyday doing person.
The workhorse.
Right.
Yeah. Well, you spoke to the integral health model a little bit, and you've created this. There's this diagram. I don't know if you created it or Elliot
It's from Elliot's book,
from Elliot's
Elliot's
book,
work, yes.
and that book again is
Integral Health, The Path to Human Flourishing.
Integral Health: The Path to Human Flourishing. I wonder if you could speak just a little bit to myself because I'm not as, of course, not as familiar with the model, and to those who are completely unfamiliar, what is integral health? What does that mean, and how could you kind of sum it up?
It's a whole health, mind, body, and spirit. And Elliot took a very complex developmental model that Ken Wilber has developed over the years, that and he applied it to medicine and then to health. And his vision was that medicine would make this evolutionary leap and come into the whole health integral delivery capacity. And it really calls out the practitioner to take care of themselves first. And there are four quadrants of the model. One is the biological, that has to do with the physical health. One is psychospiritual, having to do with growth of spirit and education and continuing to learn through a lifetime. Another quadrant is interpersonal, that contains the developmental line of relationship with self, relationship with family, relationship with community. And then there's a fourth quadrant that he calls worldly, and that has to do with the work I do in the world, my capacity for generativity, giving back to others, being a mentor or being a grandmother, just showing up to be a contributing person in that way. And the other line of development in worldly is social activism. So I'm going to be giving a class that's been a long time in development uh, for people to apply this model to their lives, or for practitioners to learn about it so they can apply it to their practice. And the first introduction is going to be in the end of the month
Awesome.
at Third Street Center.
Very exciting. And it really speaks to something that I've, puts words to something that I've really seen as true all my life, which is really like the whole, defining health, because I think a lot of people just define health as, the absence of disease or perfect blood work or, no cold or flu or whatever that is. And I always have had this question of like, well, yes, that's kind of one, what do you do with that healthy body? Like, how do you show up in your relationships, in your world, in your soul's work? And yeah, it really speaks to that human potential and flourishing.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes. And Elliot, there's a definite Buddhist influence in the work that he does because he studied Buddhism for a number of years, and he's definitely brought that influence into his writings. And he is going to be here in April to do a weekend program. We haven't had him here for a number of years, so I'm really excited that the community will get to meet him and really know where our model, the living model, came from.
Yeah, for sure. I'm looking forward to attend. Yeah, be sure to keep an eye out. Um, so over the years that Davi Nikent has been serving the community and practitioners and educating, lifting people's spirits, I'm curious if there's any experiences personally or that you've witnessed in others from, specific workshops or teachings or anything like that that really stand out as being meaningful and impactful in your life.
I tell my husband, because I throw these parties for myself because it's for my personal growth and well-being as much as for anybody else. So I've learned a lot about managing my own health and wellness through all aspects of the model. And most recently, coming into this, supporting Dr. Greg Feinsinger's work in plant-based nutrition, I flipped the switch and 4 years ago started that lifestyle, and it's been hugely beneficial for me, who I've struggled most of my life with weight gain and weight loss, and up and down, and never being able to really get a handle on it or realize how I want to be for the rest of my life. And this is how I want to show up now. And so I'm grateful to Greg and the work that he does. And of course, we support his work through Davi Nikent. And I think just so many people that we've been able to bring in. Dr. Eben Alexander, I don't know if you know him. Eben had a near-death experience and wrote a beautiful book about his experience. And we had him come speak and really showed me through how he went to this other place and came back and is able to report on it, and really saying to people, if you move through a path of changing your level of consciousness and coming to understanding that all is one and that all is love, that there's a possibility of feeling that place of heaven here on earth now without having to go there.
Yeah, as you were sharing that, I was thinking of Ram Dass. Were you
yes.
kind of a student of Ram Dass, or did you? Yeah. And him teaching about life as preparing for death, and all of life's experiences is kind of pointing us to that and identifying with our soul throughout it. Yeah. Well, that's beautiful. And I do want to talk for a second, as you brought it up, about the plant-based thing, because that's a huge part, as you know, of what we do and what this podcast is about also. And it's hard to, I often talk with people who have made a switch to a plant-based diet and experienced weight loss or, reversal of disease. And it's hard to picture you, not vibrant and not, and not, your ideal weight. So and also I think that I talk with a lot of people who say, oh, I'm too old for that, even at, age 60 or 65, like, which is a young, ripe human. And so talk to me about that change in your life. And you clearly did it with great success, and are feeling great and not looking back. But what was that decision like for you personally?
Fortunately, it was like, as I said, a switch
Mm-hmm.
flipped. And I realized that it was because I got the information. I'd been building up the information over a period of time. Books I'd been noticing, listening to Greg's talk, and meeting some of the leading lights in the plant based arena.
Mm-hmm.
So there was information, and I know that information can change the brain and create neuronal pathways, and bringing in also belief system that if I do this, I'm not only helping myself, but I'm helping the planet. Um,
So it
and
sounds like it wasn't really an effort. It was just
it
a
was no
switch and
effort. It was
boom.
just, yes. And I know that's difficult for
Yeah.
people to imagine. However, I knew from my study in neuroscience that the information can readjust the brain and the belief pathways, and that can be so.
Yeah. That's a really good, reminder. And I'm curious if you said you were kind of exposed to this for a little while. Um, when you say that, what do you mean? Like, because I know a lot of people, read a book one time and then do something for a little bit and then pick up that book again a few years later and, oh yeah, and stick with it for a little longer. Were you doing anything like that, kind of dabbling, or?
Well, I certainly dabbled in
Yeah.
different diet
Yeah.
things, and I disliked the word diet. So I figured, well, it's lifestyle. It's really lifestyle, and I want to live out my life as healthfully as possible, and being able to enjoy things I like to do with my husband, being active outdoors, and being available for my grandson, so we can go hiking and camping and the things that he likes to do. So it wasn't just for me, it was for other too. And also, I have a thing about not wanting to contribute to the healthcare debt of this country. Coming from Canada, where healthcare is available to people,
Hmm.
where it is healthcare, um, I didn't. I didn't want to fall into the bucket
Yeah.
on my own volition. I want to be a responsible person in that way.
Yeah. Well, that's really well put. And thank you for stating it like that, so beautifully and kindly. Yeah, I think that uh, it's like you were ripe for that change in your life, and it just happened like a switch. And it's a good reminder for those who may be struggling a little bit, looking for that switch to flip. Yeah.
And there were energy modalities that help. Kathleen Forbes, I don't know if you've met her.
I haven't.
She's on our board, but she does different energy modalities and helping people switch their belief systems.
Okay.
Kathleen and other people I've worked with uh, in different modalities like that, the tapping system and other things. You know, I was setting myself up for success by throwing these parties over at Third Street.
And how about the rest of your family, your husband or your children or those that you socialize with?
My family's not quite there yet, but definitely younger daughter is moving in that direction, and my older daughter does go back and forth. My husband knows about it and not yet choosing the path.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I can feel your peace and acceptance, because I know a lot of people are like, oh, dragging their feet and stop, kicking their hands and feet and wanting others to follow suit. But we're all on our own
We're
uniquely
on our
timed
own
journey.
journey, yes.
Absolutely. Good
And
reminder of
personal
that.
choice is personal choice.
Absolutely. Well, just kind of like as we tie things together here, beyond your change in diet, the switch that was flipped there, I'm curious if you could speak to other kind of lifestyle or, mindfulness kind of practices or anything that you attribute your vibrancy and vitality to at this point in your life.
A meditation practice for a number of years, not absolutely on a regular basis, but it's there in place and a go-to when I make space for it. And studying a lot with awareness practices, the work of Locke Kelly, who we've had come here, and open-hearted awareness is one of the teachers who's had a big influence on my life. And we've not hosted Thich Nhat Hanh, but we certainly refer people to his mindfulness practices and his peace living, loving lifestyle. And influences like that have made it possible.
Yeah, so it sounds, throwing all these parties, like you said again, what I often point to them as like reference points in our lives as reminders, and we can fall out and forget, and then the more reminders we have in place, the more we can grab onto and remember what is true, which is our peaceful essence.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So meeting you and Susanna was a delight. Thinking, oh, we've got more on the team here who
Absolutely.
understand the plant-based lifestyle and are definitely teaching it. And I was thrilled to go through the introduction to naturopathic medicine that you did at Third Street Center. I saw the similarities between the naturopathic model and the integral model, and really appreciate what you bring to our community.
Thank you so much. And that does mean a lot, considering that you've just learned so much. I can only imagine the number of books that you've read and tapes that you've watched and listened to. I mean, you've really spent your life, it sounds like, being exposed and being open and receptive to that which fills you up and allows you to live your best life.
Yes, I do have quite a library.
And maybe just as we wrap things up, I'm curious what your vision is for Davi Nikent moving forward beyond the physical space to host retreats and those kind of immersions.
Well, we're in a juncture now. We're going to be bringing on 2 or 3 new board members and wanting them to affirm that they would like to continue with the integral health model as the guiding star for the organization. And so in the next 6-8 months, that will be explored. We're always open to the potential that the property and the right team of people will come together to manifest the physical center. And that's come close a couple of times over the years. And I'm just in the letting go. And if it is to be, it will. It will manifest. And so I invite people to join in the vision. And I know there's 3 or 4 or 5 practitioners, one sitting across the table from me right now.
We hold the vision,
Yes,
absolutely.
we're vision holders. And who knows?
Beautiful. And finally, I don't think I can let you go without giving you an opportunity to maybe speak to those people feeling less than optimal, whether it's physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, based on all of your learnings and life experience. What kind of words of wisdom might you have to offer those moving forward in their lives?
I think the big issue we're dealing with is stress, and people living a very stressful life, whether it's financial stressors or relationship stressors, health stressors, and it really takes a toll, as we know. And so being able to stop and say, okay, what is going on here? Taking deep breaths and saying, where am I out of balance? What is showing up in my life that is creating this situation? And sometimes for people, it's a catastrophic stop. And they have to really take the time to do that introspection. But I would encouraging people, and I hope through our programs we're offering things. And the Mindful Life program at Third Street Center, we do a lot in connection with John Bruna and others there to encourage people that if you can stop and be quiet and listen, you will see a path. You will be given the signals of where to go next, and to have a really good relationship with a healthcare practitioner who you can talk about these things about, and can point you to other experts who can help you break out of the patterns that are causing the issues in your life.
Yeah, I love that. And it's a good reminder that the universe is supporting us wholeheartedly 100% of the time. And sometimes that support shows up in the presence of others pointing their fingers and offering direction physically. And, listening to that universal wisdom, which is guiding us, is what I hear you saying, and a good reminder for us all.
Yes, get quiet and listen within, because there is an inner wisdom that's waiting for you to stop, and it has information for you if you can take the time to go there.
Absolutely. Even when we most doubt it or most feel lost, that's sometimes where where it shows up the most is in the times of desperation, or the dark nights.
And the other thing I just suggest to people is take the time to go for a walk. Just walking out in this beautiful, beautiful country that we live in, 20 minutes, 30 minutes each day, and just noticing what's around, and making that connection to nature, I think, can be the most nurturing and the most inspirational vehicle to start connecting.
Absolutely. There's no excuse. even for those who don't live in this beautiful of a place. I'm a little biased. We're a little biased. I think it's the most beautiful place on earth. But even if you think that you live in somewhere awful, it's still wonderful. It's still a beautiful world.
Every city, urban area, there are parks.
Yeah.
And you can go sit by a stream or sit by a pond, hug a tree, listen to the birds.
Watch the rat run across the street. Anything. They are nature, you are nature.
Yes.
Yeah. Lovely. Well, Rita, I really do appreciate your time and your sharing openly about your life, your experience, your wisdom, and peace and love.
Thanks for the invitation.
All right.
Namaste.
Namaste.